Hello and welcome to Elecspo, and you asked for it, so here it is. It is part 4 of the Newcastle United Saudi Takeover experiment. Part 3 ended on a bit of a sour note, and it looked like the writing was on the wall. They've just had their worst finish in a long time, a very disappointing 9th. Luis Enrique has been sacked as manager, and more notably, Amanda Staveley has scaled back funding not once, but twice. But all is not lost. This incarnation of Newcastle are still winning trophies, and they're still a lot better than they were under the Mike Ashley regime. But let's give them 5 more years and see if they can bounce back from their disappointing 9th place and return to their rightful place in the Premier League's top 6. I'm James from Elecspo, and this is part 4 of the Newcastle United Saudi Takeover experiment. Let's go. Okay, here we are where we left things, the 8th of June 2036, Newcastle just finishing 9th, they've still got their captain, your friend and mine, Marlon Cardona, what a signing he's been, but Newcastle are on the lookout for a new manager. Let's have a look at the advert for the job. Wage bill £4.8 million, rich finances, 4.5-star reputation and state-of-the-art training facilities. Something you can't say about Newcastle in reality. I mean, it's an absolute shambles, the Newcastle training ground. The club culture, they want to make the most of set pieces, sign players under the age of 23 for the first team, and they don't want to sign players over the age of 30. There's no mention of pushing for the title or anything like that. It's quite a simple job offer really. Well, not an offer, I haven't been offered it considering, I mean, my manager's been sat here doing nothing for the past 15 years. But anyway, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to simulate a year into the future to the summer of 2037. We'll see who replaces Luis Enrique, and we'll see if Newcastle can recline the Premier League table. Let's go. Okay, here we are on the 14th of June 2037, the 16th year of the Amanda Staveley and Saudi era, and Newcastle have somewhat bounced back, but they are still going to be playing in the Europa Conference League. Pretty disappointing that for Newcastle. They came 6th, but because Arsenal must have won some cup, they've taken their place in the Europa, meaning Newcastle are going to have to settle for the Conference League. It's all the more disappointing because they were only 1 point off Liverpool, who came 4th. But it's been a better season from Newcastle. They're back in the top 6, they're back in Europe, and who is their new manager? It is none other than Rodrigo de Paul. I genuinely didn't think that name was going to come up. What an odd name to be Newcastle United manager. Obviously known for his work at Udinese as a player who's just signed for Atletico Madrid, but by 2037 on Football Manager, he's taken his talents to management and he's somehow got himself a top 6 Premier League job. He got a 3-year deal at Newcastle. Previously, he ended his career at Boca, he went to Barcelona as well. He had a 2-year spell as manager at Porto, and now he is the Newcastle United manager. At quite a young age of 43, that's pretty young for a manager. Plays tiki-taka football, 4-3-3 style, and it's got Newcastle in a 6th place. But has he won any trophies? Let's have a little look. Obviously, they had a season with no European football, so they could go gung-ho for the cups. League Cup, they've started well, but they were beaten in the quarterfinals, losing 3-0 to Chelsea. That's pretty poor. FA Cup, they made it to the semi-finals, where they were hammered by Man United 4-0. So there's been no trophy for Newcastle. They finished 6th in the Premier League, which is an improvement on last season. But because of what Arsenal did, they're only been playing in the Europa Conference League. That's pretty disappointing for Newcastle. I mean, really, they should be pushing for Champions League. Instead, they're going to be playing in the 3rd tier of European football. Let's see what kind of money they've spent this summer. Just £121 million, not much, it's pocket change really. The most expensive arrival, Lucas Sharp from Bayern Munich, 74 million quid, only brought in £56 million as well, so they've spent double what they brought in. That's quite a lot of money. Lucas Sharp, that is not a very Colombian sounding name, but he's the big arrival at Newcastle. And as we can see, funding is well and truly being scaled back. Well, it kind of is. £121 million, still a lot of money to spend. There's one interesting departure. Amad Diallo gone to Shabab Al Ahly. I mean, how old is Amad Diallo at this point? Because last time I remember doing this, he was one of the top players. He's 34, so he's got to chase the cash. Fair play to him. You can't really blame him. And he was playing slightly less for Newcastle. He's had a great time in the UAE. So well done, Amad. I'm sure your wallet's very full suddenly. So Newcastle, 6th place in the Premier League. No trophies in the 16th season. Yes, funding's been scaled back, but they're still spending a fair wedge of cash. I mean, that's a lot of money to be spending. Next year they'll be in the Europa Conference League, back in the top 6, back where they belong under Amanda Staveley. Where will they be next season? Let's simulate another year in the future. Let's see if Rodrigo de Paul can kick on. Okay, here we are, the 13th of June 2030. It's another good season for Newcastle United. They've climbed the table to 5th, but once again they are a point shy of Champions League football. They came 5th with 70 points, 1 point behind Liverpool yet again. Luckily for Newcastle, they're going to be in the Europa League this time. There's no Europa Conference League, so that's fine, that's a bit better. In terms of the title, nowhere near, 19 points shy of the winners Manchester City. Manchester City going through a spell of domination with Pochettino, 3 titles in a row. As for Newcastle, they still haven't won a title with the Saudis. I mean, it didn't take City that long when they had their big takeover with Sheikh Mansour. I'm not sure how many years it took them to win the title. I think it was 2008, 2009 they got taken. Christ, the league history doesn't even go back that far. It took them about 5 or 6 years to win the title, I think it was. As for Newcastle, they still haven't really got close. Rodrigo de Paul, still the manager, a new captain in Cristiano Martins. What's happened to Marlon Cardona? Why has Cardona been axed? Let's have a look at the landmarks. Since we left things, Newcastle, they came 3rd at the Club World Championship. I'm not really sure how they qualified for that, but they did. Let's have a look at how they got on. They beat Atletico Madrid in the 3rd place playoff. In the semis, they were beaten by Manchester United. Quarters, they beat Flamengo. But Marlon Cardona removed as captain and replaced by Cristiano Martins. Marlon Cardona is still at Newcastle, he is still the number 9. He's content at the club, hitting double figures still. He isn't quite hitting the 20s he was getting earlier on, but he's still playing very, very well. But the number 9 is no longer the club captain, and as you can see from the events, Newcastle haven't won any trophies either this season. In 2038 they have been trophyless. Let's see how they got on. Disappointing really that they haven't won the Europa Conference League. Christ, they even had to qualify for the group stage, beating Zrinjski, who are a team from Bosnia. And they got absolutely hammered off Newcastle, 7-0. Not really surprising there. So Newcastle had to go through a qualifier, which is pretty grim enough as it is. Then they were in Group C alongside Real Betis, a decent little side. Puskás Academia, they Hungarian, they are. I just got that from Puskás. And Bredo Balik, who are from, any guesses? Iceland. Christ, that's a grim group. Newcastle, unsurprisingly, made it through. They got through the second round, they got through the quarters against Real Betis, and it was the semi-final where they were beaten, losing 2-0 on aggregate to Atalanta. I mean, it's a tough game. Atalanta, they're a good side, but Newcastle, they'll have been the favourites of that trophy, and they haven't even made the final. Elsewhere in the Cups, FA Cup, they lost in the 4th round, humiliating defeat to Ipswich Town, and in the League Cup, they were beaten in the quarterfinals by Wolves. Not quite as humiliating, but all in all, not a great season for Newcastle. Once again, I mean, 5th place is very good for Newcastle, but they've still missed out on Champions League football. What kind of money's been spent in the transfer market by De Paul? Who's he brought in? A load of regens probably, because it's 2038. £240 million spent and £270 million coming in. They've actually made a profit of £30 million. You can see there the biggest rivals, £81 million, Roberto Di Bernardi from AC Milan. Carlos, the big departure, potentially rising to £82 million. Zanini also got to PSG. PSG just throwing money at Newcastle. I mean, you wouldn't say that happened if this takeover happened in reality. I mean, Qatar and Saudi, they're hardly best mates, are they? I mean, PSG played a part in saying they didn't want the takeover to go ahead. But Rodrigo de Paul, he's climbed the table yet again. In his second season, he's gone from 6th to 5th. Surely in the next few years, he'll be getting them in the top 4. That's got to be the aspiration for Newcastle. But what I'm going to do now is, actually before we go any further, let's quickly see who the best player is at Newcastle in 2038. It's Marlon Cardona, of course it is. Then you've got the local man, Kevin Griffith, the local hero, basically the new Alan Shearer if you like. 36 caps for England, 29 goals. For Newcastle, 66 goals and 147 appearances. Your wanted man though, wanted by Barcelona. Will his head be turned? There's only one way to find out, but rather than go a year into the future, just to save a little bit of time, because I've got a lot on, I'm a busy boy, I'm going to go 3 years into the future. That'd be 5 more years for part 4. We'll have done 20 years of the Newcastle Saudi takeover experiment. By then, surely they'll have solidified themselves as a top 4 club. but to be honest, I haven't really got a lot of hope. Let's go to the year 2041, let's see what's happened. Okay, here we are on the 9th of June 2041, 3 more years into the future. Amanda Staveley has been in charge for 20 years, or has she? Is she still there? Let's have a little look at the staff just to quickly check that out. Mohammed bin Salman, don't mention his name, Amanda Staveley and the Reuben brothers, still there for Newcastle United, pumping money into this club. Some interesting names actually in the staff. Why have I never looked at this? In Rodrigo de Paul's staff, he has got John Joe Shelby and Paul Pogba as assistant managers, and then he's got Harry Kane, the Harry Kane, as a fitness coach. Elsewhere, we've also got Alexander Zinchenko as a scout, and Shola Amiobi is still at the club. Christ, more than 20 years and they still can't get rid of the loan manager, Shola Amiobi. But how have they been getting on in the past 3 years? When we left things, they came 5th. In 2039, they dropped down to 7th. They climbed the table again in 2040 to 6th. And this season, they are back in the top 4, coming 4th. It's been a strong season for Newcastle, 76 points on the board, 2 clear of Tottenham and Liverpool to ensure they are back in the Champions League. Let's have a look at how they got on the past couple of years as well. We'll go to 2039 first. They came 7th, but they must have won the Europa League because they qualified for the Champions League despite coming 7th, only with 59 points. The following season, they came 6th. It was a Europa Conference League finish because of the way the cups fell, so that was pretty disappointing. Considering they got 68 points, it's not a bad tally. They still only qualified for the Europa Conference League. And this season, they have came 4th. They have qualified on the And this season, they have came 4th. They have qualified for the Champions League by their Premier League position. But that isn't the end of the story this season. As you've noticed, their final game was against Young Boys, so they've clearly won themselves a European trophy. In the Europa Conference League, they have beaten Young Boys 2-0 to win another European trophy. In a year which was, it could have been oh so good. A 4th place finish, a European trophy. They were beaten in the League Cup final by Liverpool 3-1, and they were beaten in the FA Cup final on penalties to Manchester City. Rodrigo de Paul, he's had a good season for Newcastle, but my oh my, it could have been the best season that Newcastle have ever had in the history of being a football club ever. It would have been incredible. Let's have a little look at the landmarks. There's been no more scaling back of funding. They won the Europa League in 2039, which was obviously we already knew because they qualified for the Champions League. Super Cup runners-up a few months later, and since then the only trophy they've won is the Europa Conference League. But throughout this simulation, while they haven't become title contenders, they've won plenty of trophies. I mean, they've never even finished in the top 3. In terms of trophies though, we have won 1 FA Cup in 2028, a European Super Cup in 2034, Christ, 4 Europa Leagues, 2030, 2032, 2034 and again in 2039, and they have just won a Europa Conference League in 2041. On top of that, they've won 2 League Cups in 2026 and 2028. In total, they have won 10 trophies, which for a club that hasn't won a trophy since 1969 is nothing to be sniffed at. Newcastle fans will have been having a great time. Let's have a little look at the transfers as well. In their most recent season, they spent £234 million. They still made a profit in the transfer window, even selling Marlon Cardona. That's a... oh, I don't know how I feel about that. The year before was a bit quiet. They only spent £31 million and again made a profit. But the year before, Jesus Christ, they spent £421 million. Their biggest spend of this entire simulation. £90 million was the biggest signing. There was 3 players who cost more than £60 million. Jesus Christ, how much money have they spent? They still brought in £312 million. So a net spend of just over £100 million. Considering funding was scaled back, maybe it wasn't scaled back in that year. Rodrigo de Paul was massively backed in 2038-39. Christ, Newcastle, I mean, look at all this money they've spent. 2 seasons spending more than £400 million. There's only been 2 years where they've barely spent a penny, not including the first year. The money Newcastle have been spending has been absolutely ridiculous, yet it still hasn't delivered a Premier League title or any real progress in the Champions League. Yes, Newcastle have cemented themselves in the top 6, but still the riches of the Saudi Public Investment Fund haven't been able to take Newcastle to that next level. They've gone up a few levels, they've reached the top 6, one of the biggest clubs in the world, but not quite good enough to be a stable top 4 club and title contenders. This is going to be the end of the Saudi takeover experiment. We've seen 10 trophies won by Newcastle, probably billions spent, but no Premier League titles. We will leave it there. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. As always, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to Elecspo. And until next time, we will see you around.